You already know the decision that you're going to blow this quarter. You've blown it before. Same spot, same squeeze, same bad yes. And you're going to probably blow it again. Not because you're careless. It's because of when you'll decide it. You're going to decide it when you're hot, with the clock running, money on the line. And the you who shows up in that moment isn't your sharpest thinker. It's your most scared one. There's a way to take that decision away from the scared you. You make that call now while there's nothing forcing your hand. And you lock it so the pressure can't touch it later. And the part that most people, at least in my opinion, get backwards is who you hand it to once it's made. I want you to stay with me here because that handoff, it's the whole trick. I'm Scott Joseph, 30 years building and buying companies. And now I run Me Plus Ultra. It's a group for owners who've outgrown the room that they've started in. Here's what I want you to walk out with today. One decision pulled out of the heat and made on paper while you're calm, before you've ever squeezed by it again. You're going to set the trigger that trips it. I want you to draw the line that you won't cross and write the move that happens on its own. Then you're going to hand it to someone who won't flinch when the moment comes. All of this, it's got to be small enough to fit on one index card. It's built so a scared month, scared week can't tear it up. This isn't about being tougher in the moment. It's about making sure the moment never gets to decide it. I'm going to walk you through one Me Plus Ultra member who kept making the same expensive call under pressure, until he moved that call out of the moment for good. His story comes in 5 pieces, and each piece is a part of the decision that he built. By the last one, you're going to know how to build your own. So pour something you like, light up your favorite cigar. Let's get into it. A couple years back, we had a member, we'll call him Marcus. He brought something to one of our sessions, and he didn't bring a problem to fix. He came in carrying something that he was embarrassed about, and it was a mistake that he had made every year and hated it every year. Marcus runs an industrial packing shop, crates, foam, all the stuff that keeps heavy machinery from getting wrecked in the back of a truck. I think if I remember this right, he does about $15 million a year. I know he's in the Midwest. Great crew. The mistake was this. Under pressure, he gave away his price. He caved. He told us about the one that still stung. Slow fourth quarter, the pipeline looked thin, and his biggest buyer, a machinery maker, came in wanting 15% off to renew the annual contract. Marcus is already staring at a soft month. He folded, he signed it. And here's what that one yes actually cost. It reset the whole account down. Word started getting around. 2 other buyers came asking for the same deal. Inside a year, that single scared decision bled about $400,000 in margin. And it anchored his prices low for 2 years after. Now, here's the thing I want you to catch. Marcus is sharp. He's a great operator. Calm on a Tuesday morning, he'd never make that deal. He knew his numbers cold. The problem was never his judgment. The problem was when the decision got made. It got made hot by the guy worried about payroll, not the guy who knew the margins. So the first piece is choosing which decision to pull out of the heat. And it's not your biggest decision. It's the one you keep getting wrong the same way. The one that keeps repeating itself, right? The repeat offender. You already know yours. It's the call you'd bet money you'll botch again the next time the pressure's on because you've botched it the last 3 times. For Marcus, it was how low he'd have to go to save a deal. We've all been in that spot. For you, it could be that too, right? It might be when you finally cut a client who's bleeding you. It might be how much of your own cash you'll pour into a project that might be underwater. Whatever it is, it's the one you decide with your stomach instead of your head. And notice, it's usually not the rare, giant decision. The giant ones you already slow down for. You call people, you sleep on it. It's the everyday call, the one that comes around often enough that you've stopped respecting it. That's the one that ends up costing you the most. I want you to pick that one because that's the decision worth making now, before the next squeeze, while your head's still in charge. And once you've picked it, the next piece is the one literally almost everybody skips. You have to name the exact moment the decision goes live. You get that wrong and it stays stuck in your head, which is the one place that the pressure can always reach it. So we slowed Marcus down. We asked him a simple question. How do you know in the moment that you're in the danger zone? His first answer was a feeling. I can just tell when a deal's about to go sideways. That's useless. It's useless to him. It's useless to all of us. A feeling shows up late after you're already kind of sweating it out. So one of the things the group is great at, we kept pushing until we found the actual signal, and it was clean. Every single time he gave away price, it started the same way. A buyer had asked him to go off his standard terms, wanted a lower number, a longer time to pay maybe, some extra service thrown in for free. The ask was always the tell. That's the trigger. Something you can see from across the room, not a mood, an event. Think about the thermostat right on your wall. It doesn't fire your furnace because the house feels a little chilly. It fires at a number, 68 degrees. That's when the heat kicks on. No debate, no meeting. A trigger is exactly that. The visible thing that trips the rule. So for the decision you picked, I want you to finish this sentence. This decision goes live the moment I see blank. For Marcus, it was the moment a buyer, asked him to go below his standard terms. For you, it might be the moment a client hits 30 days past due, or the moment a project crosses its budget. Name the thing your eyes can actually catch. This is the piece the table is best at. And it's most, of what we do inside of Me Plus Ultra when we do our sessions, our virtual sessions. One leader brings a decision. The rest of us keep asking questions until the fuzzy feeling turns into signal that you can actually point to. It's a lot easier when it's not just, you staring at your own blind spot. Once you see the trigger coming, you need to decide ahead of time the exact line that changes your answer. And that line has got to be a number, not a hope. That's what we're going to talk about next. And it's where most people go soft. So Marcus, he goes home and he did the uncomfortable part. He sat down on a good week, pipeline full, nothing on fire. And he set his floor. The lowest margin he'd ever accept, the most he'd ever bend on terms, actual numbers written down. And he did it because it was a good week. That's the trick that almost nobody gets. You set the line when you don't need it. Because the day you need it is the exact day you can't be trusted to set it. Pilots, they've worked this out a long time ago. Coming in to land in bad weather. A pilot doesn't decide in the clouds, where to pull up and try again. He picks a height on the ground before the flight ever takes off. They call it the decision altitude. If he drops to that height and he still can't see the runway, he goes around. It's automatic. No debate at 200 feet in the fog, tired, wanting to be home. The scary call that's already made back when he was calm. It's the same reason a smart investor sets a stop loss. You pick the price that you're going to sell at before you buy the stock, before the panic, before you're attached to it. The number gets set by the calm you, so the scared you can't move it later. That's your threshold. The line your answer flips on. And for Marcus, a hard margin floor and one concession that he could offer, right? Not a dollar past it. For a client who's late, maybe at 45 days, we stop the work. For a project that maybe is bleeding cash, it's at 20% over budget, we halt and review. Pick the number cold. And don't pull it out of the air. Marcus set his floor off his real job cost, plus the margin that the business needs to make payroll and still grow. The point below which the work isn't worth taking. The line, it can't be a wish. It's the math you already know when you're not scared. And write it down. Very important. Write it down where you'll see it, not where you'll argue with it. A line that lives only in your head, that's a line that you're going to negotiate with yourself at the worst possible time. The line you draw when nothing's on fire is the only one that holds when everything else is. Now, a line, by itself still isn't enough, because when the trigger trips and you hit that line, you're going to want to stop and think. And thinking right then, that's the trap. So the next piece is deciding the move now, so there's nothing left to think about later. If this episode is hitting home, you're probably already asking where this kind of thinking actually happens. That is exactly what Me Plus Ultra sessions are built for. They're small, virtual, structured working sessions for experienced business leaders and leaders. Each month includes breakthrough sessions, process sessions, and expert forums. And each one has a very specific purpose. In a session, one leader brings a real challenge or decision they're facing. The room starts by slowing the thinking down, asking clarifying questions, challenging assumptions, and making sure everyone is actually solving the right problem. From there, members are sharing insights, their experiences, and they're giving advice, but it's grounded, relevant, and it's built on what's actually already been pressure tested. If you've been in rooms where advice comes fast, but clarity never sticks, this is a different standard. You can request access right now at meplusultra.com/sessions. Once again, go to meplusultra.com/sessions. So Marcus wrote the move, not a goal, the actual thing that happens the second a buyer pushes past his line. He gave himself one counter. And he only needed one. If a buyer wanted a lower price, he could trade for it. More volume, a longer contract, faster payment, never a straight, discount for nothing. Trade, or the answer is no. And if the buyer wouldn't trade, he had a warm, written no, word for word. So nobody had to invent it while they were sweating. Love working with you. That's below where we can go and still do it right. Here's what I can do instead. That type of message. That's the move. It's decided once on paper while he was calm. So in the moment, there's no deciding left. There's just doing the thing that he already chose. Because here's what goes wrong when you leave the move, for later. Later, you're not choosing between good and bad. You're choosing between the calm plan and whatever your fear is screaming. And I'm going to tell you, fear always has the better sales pitch in the moment. It's louder, it's faster, and it's holding your payroll hostage. Pressure, it is the worst place to meet a decision for the first time. When the move is already written, you're not meeting the decision for the first time. You're just reading back something a smarter, calmer you already handled. And I'll admit, this one cost me years. Back when I was involved in the operations, the day-to-day stuff at J&L Marketing, I used to cut my own price to land, especially the big deals, right? Those aspirational logos. I told myself the name was worth it. Then those marquee accounts, the problem was they set the price everyone else expected. And I spent a long stretch, digging out of holes that I had dug myself, one special deal at a time. Nobody made me do it. I just kept meeting the same decision fresh every time, always when I was hungry. It's like kind of going to the grocery store when you're hungry. Always a bad move. So write your move, one action, in plain words, somewhere you can read it back when the moment comes. And now the last piece, the one that I told you people get backwards. Because even with the trigger, the line, and the move all written down, there's still one person who will happily tear the whole thing up. It's you. So who holds it matters much more than you think. So Marcus did the thing that made it stick. He gave the rule away, to the floor. And the one counter went into his quote system as a hard gate. His salespeople could work right up to the line on their own, fast, no waiting on him. Below the line, a deal couldn't move unless somebody signed off on it. And here's probably the part that took the most guts. He took that sign off away from himself. He handed it to his controller, a numbers guy who feels nothing when a buyer says, then we'll walk. Because Marcus knew the truth about himself. In a slow month, he's the leak. He's the one who'd cave. The rule only works if the one person it's protecting the company from can't quietly undo it. There's an old story about a sailor, who wanted to hear the sirens sing. He knew the song would pull him to steer his ship right onto the rocks. So he had his crew tie him to the mast, and he told them, no matter how much I beg, do not untie me. He didn't trust to calm him, to out-argue the scared him in the moment. He took his own hands off the wheel ahead of time. That's the peace. That's what this peace is. You decide while you're clear that the you who shows up under pressure doesn't get a vote on this one. You give the rule to someone steadier or to a system that just enforces it. And you make undoing it take real effort. A conversation, a sign off, instead of 1 week moment. So what ends up happening to Marcus? Next soft quarter, 2 buyers end up pushing hard. The gate held. One took the trade. The other one walked. But they came back 6 weeks later at full price. Because it turned out nobody else could do what Marcus does. Not at least create the type of experience that he was able to create. They were not as happy. The bottom line is he held his margin through a slow stretch for the first time in his career. That saved margin paid for a second shift that he'd been putting off for 2 years. And he wasn't even in the room when the deals closed. The gate did it for him. So here's the whole build in one breath. Pick the decision that you keep getting wrong under pressure. Name the trigger that your eyes can catch. Draw the line while nothing's on fire. Write the move before you need it and hand it to someone who will not flinch. One decision made once on one index card. Do it this week for the call you already know you'll botch next. Then build a small stack of them. Decisions that, the pressure isn't allowed to touch. The goal was never to get braver in the hard moment. It's to make sure the hard moment shows up and finds the decision already made. Decide it once while it's calm, and the pressure never gets a vote. Here's the catch, though. The hardest piece to do alone is the one we started with. You got to pick the right decision and find the trigger. On your own, you're going to pick the comfortable one and miss the signal because it's your blind spot. That's the part another set of eyes does for you in about 20 minutes. That's what the Me Plus Ultra sessions are for. They're small, private working sessions where experienced owners and leaders bring one live decision to the table. We slow it down, ask the questions that turn your gut feeling into a trigger that you can see, and then help you draw the line before the pressure ever gets to it. The exact work Marcus did that day. You can come watch one before you ever consider joining. Sit in and see how the table pulls a decision out of the heat and puts it on paper. If you've been in fast advice groups, where everybody talks and nothing sticks, this runs to a different standard. I want you to go to meplusultra.com/sessions and ask for a seat. That's meplusultra.com/sessions. It takes 2 minutes. There's no pitch waiting for you. You'll get to watch the whole thing work before you decide anything. So go pick your one decision. Draw the line while it's calm and take it away from the person most likely to blow it. which, on your worst day is you. I'm Scott Joseph. This is Business, Bourbon, and Cigars. Go make the call before the moment makes it for you. Cheers, everyone.